Good morning and welcome to Prolight and Sound BIZLounge 2021. Great to have you here. Well, virtually. And we would have loved to have you here in person, but due to the obvious reasons, we are welcoming you at your screens, wherever you're watching us. May it be your homes, your home office, your living room, your bathroom, maybe your kitchen, maybe your bedroom. Great to have you here this morning. Hi and welcome. My name is Felix Uhlig and I'll be guiding you through today's program of BIZLounge 2021. We've prepared great panel discussions with great panelists and speakers from all around the world, covering the most important topics of today. Restart and on how to get back on track and get the event sector back on track as soon as possible. Topics: Brexit, sustainability, education, and of course lighting, and last but not least, our very, very famous Signers and Opus 2020 Awards. But before we start with the program, I'd like to welcome my very first guest of today. She and her team are responsible. They are in charge of Prolight and Sound. She's had a pretty exhausting last year with a lot of ups and downs. Please welcome, and I'm really happy she's here with us, Director of Prolight and Sound, Mira Wölfel. Hi, Mira.
Good morning. Good
Great
morning,
to have you here.
Nice to see you.
Well, Mira, today was supposed to be the grand opening of Prolight and Sound 2021, but instead we are streaming live to our audience. How does this make you feel this morning?
Yes, indeed, it's not easy to stand here this morning without thinking about all our visitors and exhibitors. We miss them so much. We miss you all out there. As part of the event family, the Prolight and Sound team knows exactly how difficult it is outside for them at the moment. Well, but still, I'm very proud and happy to be here with you at our BIZLounge, and I'm very proud and thankful for the support of our community.
So it seems to be very emotional for you, and I totally understand, because I get goosebumps just thinking about the event industry in these hard times. And well, you've set up a completely new event, BIZLounge, but to be honest, is BIZLounge meant to be like a replacement for Prolight and Sound?
No, definitely not.
Great.
The BIZLounge, as you just mentioned, has excellent panels and excellent content, and it was born the day after we had to cancel our Prolight and Sound last January, and we wanted to give our partners and our community a platform where they can raise their voice, discuss their ideas, try to find solutions. The Prolight and Sound in Frankfurt, here on site, it is the place to be for our community, to our branch, to our exhibitors and visitors. And it's not a replacement. I believe in live, and I believe that there's no replacement for a face-to-face encounter.
So this is just a part. This is just BIZLounge. And how about Prolight and Sound? Are we getting back on track?
Of course, we're getting back on track. Our Prolight and Sound, it will be the platform for the entertainment technology industry next April, end of April 2022, here on site in Frankfurt. And as we mentioned last summer, of course, we'll take care about all our entertainment branch, but the focus will be on the theater business. So yes, save the date and see you all here in Frankfurt next year.
All right. Thank you very much for being here this morning, Mira. And of course, we love to see a light at the end of the Corona tunnel. And thank you for setting up BIZLounge. And I'm really excited to be here this morning. Thank you and enjoy BIZLounge. Enjoy
it too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mira. And before we start with our first panel discussion, and before I, tell you the topic of the first discussion, we would like to thank our partners and of course our sponsors. And of course, we mentioned them by name. Thank you very much to Adam Hall Group, Bittner, Vectorworks, ETC, Maya Sound, and Misto Art. Thank you so much for your support. And, well, let's start the day. We have some great panelists and speakers with us, and we start with restart. A very, very important topic, restart. Like now, current prospects of the event industry. COVID-19 pandemic has hit and devastated the event industry completely. And by now we've seen a lot of suggestions on how to restart. There are different testing strategies, tracing, tracking strategies, and possible solutions. And today we're going to discuss if some of these strategies are actually able to help us restart, and we will see and hear some recommendations. And I would like to welcome our guests of this morning, and we start on my left-hand side, Managing Director of EVVC, the European Association of Event Centres, Timo Feuerbach. Good morning, Timo.
Good morning, Felix. Nice to be with you.
From the BVVS, the Federal Association of Event Safety, Sven Hansen.
Hello together, good morning.
From the ISDV Community of Interest for Self-Employed Service Providers in the Event Industry, Marten.
Hello, good morning.
And remotely, of course, we have a few more speakers from the BDKV, Federal Association of the Concert and Event Industry, Marten. Marten, great to have you here.
Good morning, everybody.
From Phase 2 Crowd Management Evacuation, all the way from the Netherlands, Eric Kont.
Good morning, thank you.
Eric. And the Director of International Affairs at NAM, National Association of Music Merchants, all the way from the United States, Betty Haywood. Good morning, Betty. Great to have you here.
Good morning.
Now, before we start, there will be Q&A sessions for our audience. So below the video window, you see a little chat window. These are secret messages you can send me, you can send our team, and ask questions. And our panelists will answer these questions right after the discussions. They'll hand them over to me virtually on my beautiful iPad here, and I ask our participants your questions. So feel free to type them in whenever you feel like. Now, before we start, we get a short explanation, a short presentation of the restart matrix and the test strategy in German, and it'll be held by Marten Pauls and Marten Wagnitz. And don't worry if you see some German words leftovers. It's a pretty huge matrix, and we've only translated the most important parts for you. So Marten and Marten, take it from there, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning again from my side. I have the honor to just present in about short term of 10 minutes the key elements of the matrix we developed in the Forum Veranstaltungswirtschaft. And I'm going directly into it. There's the matrix. This is what you see if you look at the matrix, which can be found online for further investigation. The goal of the matrix is to give authorities on one hand, and on the other hand, the promoters and event planners, a reliable tool to go via a flow scheme through a structure of measures and event sizes and event types, to get the same result and allowance for capacities and measures to be taken for infection control. So I'm going through the elements of the matrix. First, we are talking about the upper section of the matrix, and at the top you see 3 packages of basic measures which have been chosen. So you can choose for A, B, or C when you are planning an event. And these 3 basic measures packages are determined then further on by 6 risk levels we implemented. Risk levels can be, as shown in this case, due to the 7-day incidence, and they can also go by the beds in the hospitals or other factors which can be developed by time. In February, when we put this matrix into public, we decided to go by the 7-day incidence because that's the most well-known number you can get, despite all the critics down to that number. And then we have divided the events in between indoors and outdoors. As we know, outdoors we have far less opportunity to get infected by an infected person. So we decided to put that separately. And what we did is we, as a basic condition, we defined a utilization rate in % of the venue capacity. Why is that? In 2020, we recognized in the late summer, when there were some allowances to put on events again, that the mid-size and large event centers and arenas, they were not able to utilize a significant capacity of their total volume, because all the orders from authorities were capped. The maximum allowed was around 1,000 outdoor and 650 indoor on average in Germany. There were some counties they went a little bit higher, but we decided, to put off this cap and make it down to a percentage of venue capacity to allow the mid and large size venues also to go, if they go by check bread seating, and if they can go by 30%, then that's far more than the 650 allowed by the authorities. So that's the upper section, and the capacity of the venues is then limited by the risk levels and defined by the basic measurements. I'm now going to explain the ABC type of measures we have. First, it's A, that is well known in Germany as AHA plus L. There are some other acronyms in some other countries. This basic is distancing 1 meter and 50 or more. It's the general hygiene, like hand washing and all that stuff, and wearing a mask all the time. And then the L means air condition, type of air condition, basic air condition in the room. So this is keeping record of who's entering the event. This is the most basic packages of measures. So we think below that, no event will be possible. And then we have type B. Type B is going a little bit more distinguished down to the specific environment in a specific venue, and you need a special infection control and hygiene concept, and need to put a hygiene responsible person into place to make it feasible for the specific venue. And that would allow a venue a much higher capacity than when using type A of basic measure package. And then we have type C. Type C is the most measures of that. It would require an actual negative test or proof of immunity or vaccination at the entrance. It will have special contact tracing, like drilled down to the seating place, to allow afterwards to know who has been seated next to you. And of course, we have a specific infection control and hygiene concept, and again, the responsible person. So what we think is that with the measure type C, we should have the maximum allowance to do events up to 100% of capacity, while in B, we have still a limit in the capacity percentage-wise, and with A, we are capped with total numbers, because we think this is just a basic approach going down to very small venues and small types of events. Now we have the risk levels. I already mentioned that. We decided for the 7-day incidence as a factor, but that can also be flanked with other factors like intense care beds and R values and the vaccination quotes and whatever. So we just brought it down to 6 risk levels, and we said it will be possible to go for events until risk level 6. That means until a 7-day incidence value of 200. That would be feasible for us. So that's the upper half, and then we go down to the lower section of the matrix. That's where further considerations come in place that will further on limit a little bit the capacity. At the first one, we are considering the event type. In between, is this a seated event? Is that a standing event? Is that like a trade show event? Is it sports? Is there going to be dance in the public? Whatever. And then we have further aspects mentioned lower down, and we call that complementary conditions that put limits on the utilization rate. And then if we go into detail, now I see my picture, and now I see the slides again. Very good. The type of event is ruling some minimum space requirements which we have. So we can put a little bit more distance in crowded places, and that is what we found in the authority regulations in 2020. They had been laid out some minimum space requirements due to the type of events. That's what we incorporated there. We have to adjust seating maps for the venues to assure that we comply with those regulations. And we also found allowed seating clusters. One person distance, another person would be seating cluster 1, and we saw up to 10 persons of different households were allowed to sit together at the maximum last year. So we incorporated those seating clusters 1, 2, 4, and 10 due to different risk levels in the matrix. And then we have further complementary conditions like personalized ticketing, mask order while you seat or walk around in a venue, air conditioning, special concepts for travel at larger events, and circulation period. This is something we incorporated in Type C, which requires a testing and so on, because we said there's still a little risk afterwards if you're tested that you are false negative, so that you are, in case you are infective when you enter an event. And we keep that risk a little bit smaller if we put down the circulation period of an event. We limited it to 8 hours in general, and at the maximum, and to 12 hours are allowed at lower risk levels. This is just to incorporate that base risk. And at the end, we have some sport events with mass participation, because we have some promoters in Germany doing running events with tens of thousands of participants in the public area, and we incorporate them as well in the matrix. Then at the end, we give the authorities a flow scheme to go through the matrix and tell them from step 1 to step 5G in order what to do, what to decide. So first you go for the basic measurement package, ABC, and then you go for the risk level, and then you decide if you're in closed room or at the free air, and then you go down, drill down the matrix, and then you come reliable to the same results. I've put an example in here. The example is 1,000 capacity indoor venue at risk level 4, which would mean a 7-day incidence between 50 and 100. And if you go for package A, which just means the basic AHA plus L measures, then you would get no allowance to do it like that. So if you go for package B with a distinct hygiene concept and a hygiene responsible person in place and personal seating, then you would be allowed for 33%, further limited by minimum space of 3 square meters per person and single seating. So no clusters, just single seating. That would be the allowance in package B. And if you go for package C, which would mean again testing or immune proof or vaccination proof, then you would be allowed with your full capacity, with no further capacity limit, but a circulation limit of 8 hours at risk level 4. That's basically how the metric works, and I'm keen if Marten has something to add now.
Yeah, thanks, Marten. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to show you what testing can do for the event industry and where the limitations are. I'll give you a very brief overview. What we're looking at is testing in low pretest probability, which means that the group of people we're testing is neither feeling sick or having any symptoms, nor had any contact to infected people. And what we are going to use is an antigen rapid test. And the quality of antigen rapid tests is usually measured with 2 values. The value 1 is the sensitivity of the test. This is the amount of people with a positive result within the infected group. And the specificity is the second value. It's the amount of people with a negative result within the non-infected group. The prevalence of our testing group shall be 50 out of 100,000, and what we are looking at is 10,000 people, which is the average amount of people we get in a medium-sized arena for a seated show. So if we look at 10,000 people, we have to expect 5 infected people within this group. And if we have a look at the box on the left side, the main question is, am I infected? What we're doing is an antigen rapid test. And we have 10,000 people, and we know 9,995 are not infected, 5 are infected. And the turnout will be 9,795 people with a negative test result out of the non-infected group. They are true negative. And unfortunately, we will get about 200 persons with a positive test result within the non-infected group, and this is a false positive result. So 9,795 is the 98% of the specificity, and the 200 people are the remaining 2% of the specificity. And if we look at the infected group, we will get 4 true positive results. This is the 80% of the sensitivity, and unfortunately 1 false negative result. So we have 1 person infected with a negative result. That's the remaining 20% of the sensitivity. What does it mean for our event? 9,795 people can enter the event. That's all good. That's what we want. Then we have our 200 persons with the false positive result. These persons need to be sent home. They will do a PCR test. PCR test will turn out negative. And of course, we have to refund the ticket because these people weren't allowed to get in. Then we have our 4 persons with the true positive result. They need to be sent as home as well, do a PCR test as well. That will turn out positive. And these 4 persons are a real benefit for the overall pandemic fight, because without the event happening, we wouldn't have sorted out these 4 persons, and they might have gone to school the next day, they might have gone to work, they might have gone to see the grandma. So this is real benefit for the society. And then we remain with our 1 person, which is our main problem, because we have 1 person with a false negative result, and this person is inside the venue. And here we have to take a closer look. Why is the test false negative? And there are 2 main reasons. The first reason is the poor swab or sample quality. And we can avoid this if we take testing really serious and use really well-trained staff for taking the swabs. This is really, really important. The second reason can be that this person might be not very contagious. We have to keep in mind people can be infected but not contagious, which means the test is just looking for virus protein. And if there's no virus protein in the sample, that means there's probably no virus protein in the swab. And if the swab is taken properly, this person might turn out in the PCR as positive, but the antigen rapid test is negative. So maybe this person is not very contagious, which would be the good news. So as a conclusion, testing really needs to be taken seriously. We have to ensure very good sample quality. Testing can help a lot in the overall pandemic fight. That's what we learned. The remaining risk is to our own risk assessment, and the outcome can be really good if we take ongoing measures on this. And we have to keep in mind testing works much better in a very low prevalence. So I think the mission is to really get the numbers down. That's what we all have to do. And yeah, I'll leave this for now, and thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marten and Marten. And of course, my first question goes directly to you now. This matrix is so extensive, so big, but is this actually what we need to do in order to get the event industry back on track and in order to actually at the same time enable economically viable events? Marten?
Yeah, well, if I say some words to that, Of course, that's still a compromise, and the way the matrix shows is the way back to the full track. Of course, you can't be economically viable with a 33% of capacity. We have to find ways for governmental support of putting on events like this, and but it's a roadmap, so to speak, for the way back, and it gives all the small clubs and small venues the opportunity to utilize the summer to make some business with limited capacities and limited package of measures. And it gives the big ones the opportunity to put in place testing procedures and use their full capacity. So there's a choice for everybody. And what was the basic goal was to give the authorities a reliable set of work. And what we learned in the meantime, that there's a big interest in the authorities of the 16 Bundesländern in utilizing the matrix. We are in close talk with some of them to get incorporation in their summer opening plans, because that's what they need. They need a roadmap for their local authorities to decide on which events with which measures can be suitable for licensing. So yeah, I think it's a map for the road back. It's not being back.
All right, so Marten, maybe a question to you. Why are so many experts absolutely convinced that a stringent testing strategy supported by the industry is the perfect solution on the way back to normal?
Yeah, as shown before, it's quite a good measure, and that's what we are doing in all other other parts of our industry as well. Is risk assessment, and we try to find measures to reduce risk, and testing is a very good measure to reduce the risk of transmitting, and so. If we form some safe bubbles where all the persons are tested, then we can be relatively safe, and. As I said before, it has overall benefit for the whole pandemic fight, because if there's a lot of testing going on, then we see what's under the surface. Yeah, if we only test people who are feeling sick or who had any contact with infected people, then we never see what's under the surface going on. And so testing is really, really important.
So we actually see it here this morning with our event here with the BIZLounge. We got tested this morning. All of us got tested negative, and well, maybe we wouldn't have gotten tested if we weren't here for the event. So we have all a negative result, and this proves to be a great solution, at least for our event today, and to test people that otherwise wouldn't have been tested.
Absolutely.
So looking at the next few months, Sven, what do the authorities having jurisdiction and governments need to do to finally get the event industry back going?
Hello again from my side. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the approval situation has been very complex. All federal state regulations in Germany are structured completely differently. Maximum factors and values to be observed are unrelated. To make things even difficult, the regulations sometimes change on a weekly basis. The result is a high effort on the conceptual implementation of an infection control concept, and due to different regulations, an almost impossible realization, for example, of a tour production with the same setup, concept, and number of visitors in different cities in Germany. The only possibility is a nationally standardized approach similar to the Model Assembly Venue Ordinance, called in Germany Musterversammlungsstättenverordnung, which is also implemented in almost similar structure and with the same parameters in federal state law. The restart matrix developed by the Forum of Event Industry is ideal on a basis of this, as it takes all kinds of events, is flexible, and can be adapted depending on the location and the situation. At the same time, it is important that's not too detailed specification, as the details must be analyzed locally by the specific planners in coordination with local authorities. In general, there's an urgent need for action to ensure safe events, because it's to be expected that when the weather now gets warmer, we have the same situation like in 2020 with uncoordinated parties and gathering of people without concept and compliance of hygienic regulations once again arise again, as for example here in Frankfurt in the Opernplatz or in the city of Stuttgart. Only with safe organized events can necessary trust be built up in order to return to a safe normality, step by step and in compliance with all regulations. So much from Germany. So Betty and Eric, how is the situation in the US and the Netherlands?
Because in Germany, you have a federal system where national guidelines are given out by the CDC, Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, but then also by state, county and local health departments, with the CDC providing the true north of guidelines. So it's the same complicated situation you have as in Germany. And in the past, this also meant that we have seen that events take place in one state, but not in the other. So Nashville's honky tonks had been open and having live bands play throughout, while that would have been unthinkable in California where everything was shut. But we know there's a way to do this safely, of course, because that's the business we are in, where making people safe, whatever the events are. And a pandemic is just another challenge. The biggest challenge I think we've ever faced. At NAM, we are relying on our partners in the Entertainment Safety Alliance and their reopening guidelines. A short time ago, we facilitated a meeting between the ESA and the CDC to ensure that both sides had a direct line to each other. And I think this was mentioned just before by Marten, that the authorities were actually really eager to meet the people from the Event Safety Alliance. So this meeting was, people were absolutely happy to be working with the ESA, who had already published their reopening guidelines. They're now working together on getting alignment with the CDC, and they are in the process now of putting their approval on these guidelines. On its own, this is of course not within the power of the event sector, so the collaboration with the public bodies is really essential. In the US, the big issue in all of this is the discussion around liability. Professionals in the ESA have a very effective relationship with insurance underwriters because they are working on keeping events safe also if there's no pandemic. The CDC and state and local health departments don't have to carry the liability, of course. They give out the data and the guidelines. The bill, if anything goes wrong, will come to the event organizers. So it's really important to get this triangle of CDC, health departments, ESA aligned. When the CDC saw the guidelines, they were really thrilled because they saw that the industry has lent into what the solutions are. And between us, they all, those people on the CDC, they all want to get back to concerts and the plays. In the US, only events with this liability coverage, liability insurance, will be able to go ahead. And people are asking those questions. Are you going to abide by the regulations? And do we have evidence of this? So something like the matrix and proven packages of solutions and packages of levels of requirements are really important. This is important for everybody in the chain, from large to small independent venues. Working with national local health departments will be key rather than being seen to be working against them. Very soon, a new document will be published in the US. It's called Safe and Sound by the ESA and the new National Independent Venue Association. And I think the credibility to working with underwriters, working with health departments from the top down will be an invaluable step for the US event sector. And I really applaud the authors of the Matrix, and I'm really hoping that I'll be able to share this with our partners in the US.
Eric, what's your status? How are things in the Netherlands?
Well, in the Netherlands, there are certainly some interesting developments, and I will outline them here. In February started a series of trial events in the Netherlands, and they were named the Field Lab events. And these are small tests, and researchers are checking how the different kind of events can be held and organized safely. Well, these Field Lab events, they have been created by the events sector in collaboration with the Dutch government. And it is an initiative of the entire sector from business to public events, and from culture to sports. And the joint ambition, it is to test the various elements within the framework of health and safety that can provide insight into the possibility of easier limitations to organizers. And first, I want to emphasize that I'm not involved in this organization of field lab, neither in the experiments, but these guys are doing an amazing job, and all the credits are for them. Now, what are they investigating? Crowd dynamics. So, how do people move? How do people engage with each other? How close is their distance? For how long does this distance maintain? How do they react on measurements that are taken at events? And also, of course, the people, when they enter, some of them need to pass a fast test and their temperature is checked. And of course, before people can enter this event, they have to be tested. And at the entrance, they need to show a negative test result. And this test result is stored in a special app. And since February, we had already some trial events. We had, I think, 3 football matches, and the last one was the Netherlands against Letland with 5,000 visitors. We had some inside seated events like a theater performance and a business event. We had 2 outside events. It was a dance event and pop concert. We had an indoor dance event, indoor pop concert. And the best is yet to come, because it will be the Eurovision in May, where approximately 3,500 visitors per show are allowed. And in April, a great number of events and activities are planned where the field lab approach is applied. So that means people need to show a negative test result. They have to show it at the entrance via an app, and then they can enter. And when they are in, they don't have to maintain this 1.5 meter distance anymore. And from the indoor events, already there is data available with some interesting results. Because coming from the indoor seated events, they found that the chance to be infected, it is almost equal to the chance to be infected in the home situation. Well, the biggest impact, it is the test before you can enter the event. So when you want to go to this event, you have to show a negative test, and that had the biggest impact on safety. Now, the organization formulated some conditions to reopen the seated indoor events safely. And they say you need to do a test on a decentralized location close to the house of the visitor. And this test has to be done maximum 24 hours before this event. Everybody needs to show this negative test result in this app, and the maximum occupancy, maximum visitor loading, it is 50% of the max capacity. So only 50% of the capacity of this venue can be used. But people don't need to maintain this 1.5 meter distance. Also, when people move inside this venue, they need to use a mask. Very important is the ventilation. So fresh air, it has to be according to regulations. And it is very important to communicate with your visitors before, during, and after the show. So based on these results, I think the authorities need to continue this kind of tests. And in the end, of course, with the aim to reopen the events industry. And they say it can be done in July. So you see a lot of organizations starting to organize their events from July. And hopefully it is good enough, the situation at that moment, to restart the events.
And thank you very much for the numbers, and thank you very much for making us jealous to be able to do events with already 5,000 people. We get back to you in just a few moments because we have a few questions regarding, well, of course, the Netherlands as well. But before we get to the Q&A questions, Timo, I would like to get to you because at the beginning of the corona pandemic, we had no numbers. We had no numbers regarding the events industry, so there were no numbers that could have been presented to the government. And you started something called in German the Zähl dazu Studie. Tell us all about it, Timo.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Felix. Before I explain why we start the study today and what it is, I just want to underline what my colleagues said before. You see, we as the industry, we take the whole restart thing really, really serious and work hard for it. And we are convinced that we can be part of the solution to fight the whole pandemic. We can provide safe spaces for the so hardly desired face-to-face meetings if authorities let us do our job. So we really work hard on it. But back to your question, we start the study now, you see it on the screen, and really we had to learn badly last year and really painful that we can offer numbers on our industry. We are not existing in official statistics, neither in the international field on the NACE code, nor in Germany in our statistics. So we started to collect data from different sources. We did a meta study, which was a really important first step, and we gathered quite helpful information on the turnover and, for example, number of employees. But this was not sufficient, and we need more valid data. We need really current data, and that's why we started Zähl dazu, which means be part of it, be involved, count on it, together with more than 15 associations under the umbrella of EVVC, which is the Interessengemeinschaft der Veranstaltungswirtschaft. What we want to do, we will gather information for the political discussions. We want to create even more visibility for our sector, and we will give perspective for the future, also for the ongoing transformation process of our industry. To get this financed, we started a crowdfunding campaign, and we gathered more than 56,000 euros from more than 600 suppliers. And I will take the opportunity to really say thanks a lot to all these supporters, as well as to our colleagues from our partner associations for the really, really good job for the crowdfunding campaign, especially and foremost to our colleague Nicole Baer, who managed this project so far. Thank you very much. But this was only the first step to gather money. Now we need everybody in the German event industry to take part, and we have a short animation. Maybe we can start this. Beside, I will ask you, all of you, to take part in the now ongoing study, the online survey. We can press the red button now. It's available online, and I really would like to ask everybody in our industry in Germany to take part in this online survey. We need your support in order to do a good job as associations and talk to the authorities, also looking in the future more than the pandemic at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Timo. And of course, we will get to the Q&A questions after this short clip. The first question this morning from Bogdan. Thank you very much for asking that question. Can we take non-invasive testing in consideration for making access to an event?
Yeah. Good question, of course. Yeah, I mean, what we're going to find is contagious people. And if we want to find contagious people, then these people need to have virus within their throat or nose. And of course, it's more secure to take invasive testing and go really deep. But all people who have ever made a test know what I'm talking about. It's, you know, it's not very nice. And I think that the testing goes better and better. And there are new developments. We had some really interesting news coming up from Israel, where they had a breath analyzer going on. And I think if these new techniques will be proved and will be working fine, then this is really a really good news, because even the testing time is then reduced to maybe 1 minute, which will help a lot if you have to test on site. Yeah, if you don't go to a test center before, and you always end up with some people who are not tested, and you have to test them on site, of course. And then a reduction of testing time would be very helpful. So yeah, let's see what's coming up with new technologies.
So with the breath analyzing, you could test alcohol and COVID-19 at the same time.
And all other drugs, yeah.
But does the spitting test or the gurgling test count as a non-invasive test? I think so, right?
Well, there are listed. In Germany, everything has to be listed, and it has to be
everything
has to be proved by a Bundesinstitut, and there are already tests listed and proved. Yeah.
All right. Next question. From Mark Ernesti from the Utrecht University. Right now, it is not flying that is the risk, but queuing on board, crowds piling up to leave the aircraft, all very similar to pre-corona. What are your thoughts on admission protocols to venues, ticket checks, leaving the venues, etc.? Timo, you were nodding.
Maybe Marten will say something on this.
Yes, can you please just get half of the sentence? Please repeat the question.
Of course. Hi everyone, I have a question. No, that's the other one. Sorry. There it is. Right now, it is not flying that is a risk, but queuing to board the aircraft. Crowds piling up to leave the aircraft, all very similar to pre-corona. What are your thoughts on admission protocols to venues, ticket checks, and leaving venues?
This is the question we get asked all the time when we nowadays go into negotiations with authorities. They say, well, I can see you have a very good proof concept, but what are you doing with the queues outside? And of course, that's a question hard to answer. What you can say is, well, if people know they can only come tested into my venue, then they are also tested in the queue. So I would pretty much recommend not to test at the entrance of a venue, despite all the time issues Marten mentioned when doing tests on site. You have the risk in the waiting queue. So it would be clever to make sure that the people in the waiting queue are already tested. And I think you can come to it if we have a broad acceptance of events, and that people can go with testing, negative testing, or vaccination proof or immunity proof to an event, because then we won't have a problem in the queue. Or if we have a problem, it's a limited risk at that point. Yeah, because you can easily imagine if you have 1,000 people and you need to queue them up one by one with 1.50 meters, then you are talking about a queue line of 1.5 kilometers, and of course and obviously that won't work in type of risk management.
All right. Question from Max Geiger. Hi everyone, I have a question to the antigen rapid test simulation that was shown before. Is there a simulation that also includes the vaccination coverage? Regarding false negative persons entering the venue, a high vaccination coverage could lower the risk.
Of course it will, yeah. And so it's we're getting more and more to it. I think there are no other numbers there, because these numbers were taken from the RKA, which is the Robert Koch Institute in Germany. So this is all the data coming from. And of course, if you have more people in the testing group which can't be positive because they are vaccinated, then of course you reduce the risk as well. And I mean, in Germany, actually, we're discussing if we can skip testing for vaccinated people. So that's what's coming next, I think, because the Robert Koch Institute says that the possibility that a vaccinated person can be positive and be contagious is the probability is less than having a false negative test result.
How is Eric's point on that?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, of course. How about, well, is there a simulation that includes vaccination coverage? How about, do you have exceptions for vaccinated people for your test events in the Netherlands?
No, you need to show a negative test result.
Okay.
Only criteria.
That's criteria, okay. Well, a good question, of course, is here about the test results. How are you making sure that negative test results are not falsified or fake? Because they're on your, well, you have a PDF and you can fake a PDF with Photoshop, whatever. How do you make sure they're not falsified? Yeah.
In the Netherlands, I think it is almost not possible to falsify this result. Your app is connected to your personal number, and as soon as you are tested, this negative test result enters this special app, and that you have to show that at the entrance. So as far as I know, it is very difficult to falsify this information.
So the app is connected. Marten, Timo?
Yeah, maybe another point is we didn't incorporate self-testing in our concept.
Okay. So
yeah.
It has to be like with a certificate that you get that cannot be falsified. Sven?
On this point, it's really important that we get digital solutions for the future and not writing down our data and our tests by paper. This is old school. We need a new thinking on this.
Yes. Marten?
Yeah, we talked to the company recently who is developing the German vaccination digital passport, which is UBERG together with IBM. And they told us about a special challenge because the community of the accredited laboratories, they are a little bit struggling with them because the laboratories need to issue the digital token to make sure that the proof cannot be falsified. There is an industry at the moment of crime in selling falsified proofs at airports, for example, or at train stations all over Europe, they report it. So this is really an issue and a serious question. And we need to bring the laboratories to a technical level where they can issue like QR codes, which can be sealed by blockchain. So we need, of course, like Sven said, to come away from handcrafted paperworks, but you can also falsify digital ones if they are not secured. So this is clearly the issue if you want to bring a serious concept of proof entrance into a venue. And that's the theme for the next 6 months, I think, to develop things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Marten. And of course, thank you very much to all our panelists and speakers. Very interesting topic and, well, so many solutions, so many recommendations, but I'm pretty sure, well, we're slowly getting back on track thanks to the Matrix as well and the discussions going on with the government. Thank you very much for being here this morning, and we will continue with our next topic. Big topic as well, Brexit, at 11 o'clock in just a few minutes. See you there.